The topics that we'll discuss during the webinar are listed here. Basically, I'll be describing the way the customer can register and pay for a trip using their credit card, followed by a live demonstration of each method. I'll then describe some of the reports that are available to you with respect to credit card transactions through SmartPay. And then finally, we'll go through how to set up your fleet to accept the credit card payment. So before we go on, for the purposes of this webinar, any reference to the app refers to both the SmartPay and Fleet branded apps. For example, the way a customer registers a credit card is identical in both the generic SmartPay and the Fleet branded app. But with that out of the way, one of the ways a customer can pay for a trip is using the credit card that is registered through the app. Well, firstly, your customers will need to download and install the app on their smartphones. They will need to search for the SmartPay app on the relevant stores, which is the App Store for iPhones or the Play Store for Android devices. They will need to then sign up for an account. We'll use an email and a real mobile phone number as a form of validation. Customers log in to the SmartPay app using their email and password combinations. If a customer has forgotten their password, they can always retrieve and reset their password if required. So once they log in, they'll see the map of where they are if they've got location turned on. To register a credit card, the customer will tap the three bars here. That will display the side menu where they can then click on payment method. They'll then tap on the big plus button, which I will show you later in the demo. They will then enter in the details, including the credit card number, expiry date, and the 3-digit code or 4-digit code at the back of the card. They'll also select the country that the credit card will be used in. And then they'll just press save. Your customers can add multiple cards by tapping the big plus button and entering the details of the additional credit card. So this is a SmartPay app that's already been downloaded and installed on my phone. I've already signed up for an account, so I'll just log in. Your customers will just tap the three bars here, which they'll see the side panel. They'll press the payment method, and then they'll press this big plus button, which I mentioned earlier. I'll just enter in the card number. I'll enter in my credit card number. This is a test card. I'll enter in another card as well. So that's it. I've got two cards registered in the app. So pretty simple so far. So how does a customer pay for a trip using the credit card that was registered through the app? If a customer books a trip using the app and has a credit card registered, the driver is informed that the job can be paid for in-app when he or she accepts the job. And you can see that we display the word app work. Normally you would see the word account, but because it can be paid for with the app, then we display app work. So your drivers, if they see this, they should be aware that the job can be paid for in-app. So at the end of the job, the system knows that the job can be paid for by the app, so we highlight the app button for the driver. After pressing the app button, the driver presses the send button to request authorization from the passenger. The customer will see the request for payment on their app. They can add a tip if they want to, and they will also see the surcharge, if any, as well. The customer will then tap authorize to authorize the payment. After the passenger authorizes the payment, the driver will see the status. This area here on the fair payment screen will show the status of the payment. It will go from red to yellow to green. Red means that the system is waiting for authorization from the customer. Yellow means the customer has authorized the payment and it's currently being processed. Green means the customer's credit card has been successfully charged or debited. The drivers should be aware that only when the status is green that the fare has been paid for and the customer can disembark. If there are any problems, the driver will see a message and the status will remain red. If there are problems, the driver can try requesting the payment again by pressing the app button, or they can negotiate another form of payment with the customer. The customer will also see whether the payment has been successful or not. Now for the demo. So I'm just going to create a job using the app. I'm just going to select the fleet. As a driver, I'm going to accept the job. If you can see my mouse cursor, you'll notice that the app work indicator button is highlighted, indicating that this job can be paid for in-app. I'm just going to start the job, and I'll end it. You'll notice that the app button is highlighted, telling the driver that this job can be paid for in-app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to request the payment. You notice that the status is red and waiting. Over here, the passenger will see the request for payment. For this example, I'll reject the payment. Maybe I'll press the wrong button. So the driver will be informed that the payment was refused by the passenger. I'm just going to try again. Perhaps this time I'll add a tip. I'm just going to select the card which has a problem with it for this demonstration, and I'll authorize it. I know that this is a problem card, so I'm just showing you some of the messages that the driver and passenger will see. The driver will see that the card has been declined. They'll either negotiate another form of payment, or the passenger can tell him to try again, selecting a different card. This time I'll select the correct card. The driver's informed that he was paid a $10 tip, and the status has turned green. This means that everything's all good and the trip has been paid for. All the driver needs to do is press done. You may or may not be aware that there is a feature in SmartMove that allows a customer with a credit card registered in the app to pay for any trip using the app, even if it wasn't booked through the app. For example, it can be a booking made via IVR or through the call center, or even a hail or walk-up. What happens here is during the trip, the driver will generate a link code. So when the customer is in the taxi, they will ask the driver to generate a link code. This is done via the extended menu. Just as a reminder, the extended menu is this button here, and then they will press the link to app button. This will then generate a unique code. In this case, you see that it's 12GKDO, and this is what they will quote to the customer to enter into their app. So the customer will bring up the side menu, and then they will tap link booking, and then they will enter in the code that was quoted by the driver. So once the code's been entered, the driver will see the app button highlighted on the fair payment screen, indicating that the job can be paid for by the app. And then the customer and driver will go through the same process of requesting and authorizing payment as we saw in the previous demo. The link code must be entered by the customer before the driver ends the job. Otherwise, this feature won't work. For a demo, we'll just bring up the app again. I'm going to pretend to do a hail. And then during the trip, some stage before the trip is ended, the driver will press the extended menu and then press the link to app button. This will generate a code, which in this case it's 11JFDT. They'll quote this code to the passenger. Passenger will enter that code into their SmartPay app by tapping the link booking. And now the app is linked to this booking that's currently being done. The passenger can share a tracking link with family and friends so that the family and friends can track where they are. Once the job has ended, the driver requests the payment by clicking the app button, requests authorization, passenger authorizes it, the status changes from red to yellow to green, meaning everything's okay, and the driver presses done. The second way for a customer to register a credit card for use in your fleet is to do it via the call center or the base. So the way this is done is as follows. When creating a booking, the operator will select registered card as the form of payment in the payment section of the booking form. The operator will then press the add card and then enter in the customer's details. When the booking is submitted, the customer will receive an email shortly after the booking's been entered into the system. So after they receive the email, they will then click on the enter details, which will then bring up a web page where they can enter in their card details. So the web page looks something like this. They'll click on the register card button at the bottom there, and then it'll bring up this form here where they can enter in their credit card details. The customer must register the card prior to the booking being offered to the driver. The first time this is used would be for a pre-booking, giving the customer time to register their credit card. So subsequent bookings can be, ASAP bookings, and it doesn't matter. The call center operator or the base promotes this feature, and then the customer says, okay, I would like to register my credit card for use in your fleet. So what the operator will do is to enter in the normal pickup details. I'm going to schedule it for an hour's time. I'm just going to select my car. And then in the payment section, I'm just going to select registered card. I'm going to add in the customer's details. And then I'm going to submit that booking. So just take note here that this pre-booking here, it can be paid for by a registered card once the passenger registers their card. Just take note of this field here where it says none. That means the passenger hasn't registered the card yet. Once the booking has been submitted into the system, the customer will receive an email. I'm just going to bring up the email. So this is the email that I just received. It's got a link to register my credit card, so I'm just going to bring that up. So after I register my credit card, what you'll notice here that this will change to the credit card symbol, indicating that the trip can be paid for using a registered credit card. How does a customer pay for a trip using the credit card that was registered through the call center? When the driver accepts the job, they are informed that the job can be paid for by a registered card. This is indicated here. You might recall in the previous demos, the word app work appeared here for jobs that can be paid for by the app. So for this particular job that the driver has accepted, he will know that the job can be paid for by a credit card that's been registered through your fleet. So at the end of the job, the Reg Card button is highlighted, indicating that the job can be paid for by a registered card. The driver asks the passenger for the last 4 digits of their credit card and enters it into the appropriate field. The status of the payment is shown to the driver from red or pink to yellow to green. Only when the status is green is when the card has been successfully charged and the fare has been paid. What I've demonstrated in the previous slides were 2 methods that your customers are able to pay for a trip using a credit card. Now we'll just briefly talk about what Stripe-related reporting is available to you within SmartMove. The credit card payments report lists all the jobs that could have been paid for with a credit card registered through the call center or via the app. The most useful aspect of this report is to see how many jobs had issues with charging or debiting of the credit card. If there are lots of fails, perhaps retraining or re-education of the drivers and or customers is necessary. The image you see here is a snippet of the credit card payments report from one of our customers that have really embraced the feature of SmartPay and have actively promoted in-app and registered credit card payments to their customers. The snippet shows jobs that were Stripe related, Stripe being our payment provider, for the last week. So as you can see, if I zoom in, you can see that there's about 100 80 odd jobs that were paid, that were Stripe related, of which 3 had issues. The 3 you can see on the top right-hand corner here. To me, that's pretty good. Only 3 had issues out of 179 jobs for the last week. So some of the statuses that you may see in this credit card payments report is failed, refused, unpaid, and paid. I mean, paid is self-explanatory. Everything was okay with that job. But failed is a result of communications issues somewhere between the customer's phone, SmartMove, and Stripe. Refused is a result of credit card issues, including insufficient funds, the card has expired or has been blocked by the card issuer, or the wrong verification code has been entered. And unpaid is a result of other errors which have resulted in that payment not being processed by Stripe. However, the job was most likely paid for using an alternative form of payment. So if you see like these unpaid statuses, you're more than welcome to give us a call and ask us to perhaps investigate what happened. This credit card payments report lists all the booking numbers, which I've blurred out here, but if you click on one of those booking numbers, you'll get the booking details report. Here's where you can refund the customer the full amount. We'll talk about more about refunds later in the webinar. You can also click on the Stripe charge details to load up the Stripe console to see more info about that charge. The end of shift reports and bailment reports, we list the total of all Stripe payments, and we show that separately in the cash reconciliation section of end of shift report, which is here. And likewise, the bailment report, we show the total of all Stripe payments separately in the takings breakdown section. As the vehicle operators or owners will expect to be paid by the fleet, the Stripe payments will be included in the operator invoice for account work. Okay, so how do you set up and configure your fleet to accept credit card payments through SmartMove? The first step is to create a Stripe account, and you follow the instructions in the SmartPay document. The document is lengthy, but it's a comprehensive step-by-step guide. And I'll have a link to that document in the resources slide at the end of the presentation. Once you've set up or created the Stripe account, you will advise us of what surcharge you want us to put into the system and what descriptor you want to specify as well. Now, the descriptor is what your customers will see on their credit card statement. You can have a maximum of 13 characters. Now, try to make this easily recognizable, as you don't want customers to dispute a transaction which they may not recognize. In one of the previous methods of payment, I said it was optional to request the last 4 digits of the credit card. If you want your customers to hop out of the vehicle at the end of the job without the driver needing to enter in the last 4 digits, then you can tell us you want that option enabled when we set up your account as well. But just ensure that your drivers do pick up the right passenger, because if they dispute the transaction, it's going to be costly for you. So after we've gathered up all that information, we enable your fleet to be able to accept credit card payments. We do have a handout that we've prepared that you can print out and give to your drivers and explain to your drivers how things work. We've also created a YouTube channel with instructional videos. Your drivers can access the YouTube channel via their Smart Driver app. Do yourself a favour and go and check it out after the webinar. Advertising. It's quite possible most of your customers won't know these features unless you advertise and promote it. So some of the ways that this can be done include play a recorded message when the customer's waiting to be answered by the call centre operator. That recorded message, your call centre will be able to help you set this up. Ask the call centre operators or drivers to remember to promote these features when they chat to your customers. When a passenger books a taxi in your fleet, you do have the option to send them a booking confirmation email, and you can modify that email to include words like, did you know you can register a credit card for use with Castlemaine taxis? Just ask our friendly staff how. Go on to fees. Now, for every successful payment using registered card or through the app, you will be charged a fee from Stripe, payment provider, and from us. So the Stripe fees are listed here. For Australian-issued credit cards, including American Express, Stripe charges 1.75% plus 30 cents for each transaction. In addition, SmartMove charges a teeny-weeny 0.7%. When you set up Stripe, you can specify what surcharge you will impose on your customer for the privilege of using a credit card to pay for a trip. This can be any percentage from 0 up to the regulated percentage in your state or territory. For example, I believe it's a 5% including GST in the state of Victoria. And some fleets choose to pass on the full surcharge since customers are used to it already. Others choose to absorb the fees and apply no surcharge to compete with other passenger transport providers out there. This is completely up to you. Tell us what surcharge you want to charge and we'll enter it into the system for you. Break even. The SmartPay document gives examples of break-even fares depending on the surcharge you impose. For example, if you impose a 5% surcharge, a fare of approximately $12.20 is required to break even. If required, you can use the refund facility in the booking details report to refund the passenger the full amount or a partial amount. Be aware that Stripe refunds their fees as well, but we don't automatically refund our fees. Chargeback or disputes may occur when chargebacks occur when a customer disputes a transaction with their bank. It's my understanding that the bank automatically reverses the charge, and then it's up to the merchant, in this case is you, to prove the product or service was legitimately provided. If you're unlucky enough to receive a dispute from a customer, it might be a costly experience. Stripe will refund the customer the full amount, but they will also charge you a $25 fee. You can read up more about refunds and disputes by clicking on the link here. I'll include these links in the resources slide a bit later on.